Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October 27th meeting of the Finance Committee. I call the meeting to order. Mr. Price, Mr. Sides, and Mr. Morial on the meeting. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve
the agenda.
Second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Aye. 4-0. Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the September 22nd meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, thank you. Next is the budget amendments and transfers. Ms. McLean.
We've got the amendment coming forward to you all for the capital request that we submitted to the Board of County Commissioners for the sales tax refund. There's also some state and federal amendments in there, and our VIF transfer that we do once a year for our foreign exchange or our DLI program. Does anybody have any questions about any of them? Okay. Pretty short this month.
So then we need a motion to send this to the full board on the consent agenda.
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0, thank you very much. Next is the update on the state COVID relief and CARES Act funding.
Yeah, there's not a lot of movement right now. I'm working on getting most of these funds. As you can see, the majority of them have been spent. We did send out a survey through the instructional areas to gather some data on what non-digital materials they need to help support the classrooms. So we're working on getting those orders done so those funds would be expended. And then there's some EC funding that we did receive an additional, you'll see on the amendments, there was an additional $100,000 that came in that was part of an application process. So they're right about $400,000 in those COVID funds. And I'm working with Dr. Beecham to make sure that we get all those expended as well. But that was an application process. So for the most part, all these dollars will be expended by December 30th. I'm going to do my best to make sure with the criteria that they've given us that we can spend it. There may be some small amounts of these funds that go back because of the restrictions, and but for the majority of it, we'll have it all expended probably by next month.
Does anyone have any questions on the update?
I guess that was my only question, that our plan was to spend this money by 12/30. And then I guess like on plan, what is it, 22 and 23, none of that money has been used. You mentioned the non-electronic stuff on 23, but like on the school nurses.
We've got contracts right now, and their billing is kind of behind. So we're paying those in arrears. So I'm working through making sure and getting all those invoices in, because September has just kind of come in for us to pay. So the majority of those nurses, even though they were in the school buildings in August, their billings didn't come in until late September. So we're working on getting all that processed now. So some of it has been spent. I guess I thought I updated the number. I'll double check that. I'll update that before the board meeting and make sure that the expended portion has been updated on your sheet.
And give us an example of something you would think that maybe we would not be able to spend, where a restriction is in our way. That.
Well, something similar to what you're asking about with the nurses. We got those nurses in August. They have restricted that account specific to contracted services for psychologists, nurses, social workers. And if we don't have enough hours in that time frame to bill for that whole dollar amount, there may be some portion of those dollars. But I'm working, since these funds cover from March till December, I'm working on other contracted payments that we may have had related to COVID, but having that short restriction of what contracts you can spend on, and it has to be COVID related, may affect our ability to spend it to zero, but we will get as close to zero as possible.
Okay, very good, thanks.
Shauna, what about school nutrition? I see there's a pretty big balance there, and it's kind of shocking when I see the number of meals that we're distributing and all that stuff.
Right.
What is your forecast on that? I mean, do we see spending that?
Oh yeah, that will get spent. The reason you're seeing that still sitting there is because there's been some back and forth. We're finding out things on a daily basis. They gave us guidance, and then they said, well, that's not really the way you should do it. And there's an office now called NC Pro. It's the Pandemic Relief Office, and it's state auditors. It's run by the State Office of Budget. And we had a call with them about 2 or 3, maybe 2 weeks ago, and they gave us this whole list of things. Evidently, North Carolina has been selected for that specific program to be audited from the federal government. So we're making sure that the calculations that we use to determine the expenses that are eligible to be paid from that fund are within the guidelines that they've amended a few times. So I'm going to double check and triple check to make sure that we're not spending anything that they're going to come back in January or February when they finish this audit and say, well, you spent this the wrong way. So right now, I think what we did before, we spent it on salaries before, we had these funds before June. We spent all those money, all the funds that we had so far on the salaries for staff that were currently working. That was a completely eligible expense and a food cost. So now we've just got to make sure that when it comes to a loss in revenue, that we're not duplicating a reimbursement that they're receiving from the federal government with any funds out of this fund too. So we're just being diligent about that. But I'm for sure. I mean, 400,000 is a drop in the bucket. We'll have that spent. We're just making sure we have everything done correctly.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I need a motion to send that to the full board on November 5th. Oh, you need to unmute.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are you guys hearing a lot of feedback?
Yeah.
Me too, Gary, is that from you?
No.
Okay, so this will continue budget timeline.
So I wanted to just put this on the count, put this in early enough in the school year to start talking about it. I know it's hard to think that we need to start talking about our 2022 budget, but some of the timeline that we went through last year, are we still anticipating having some of the multiple joint meetings that we tried to do last year? Are there any changes that you all foresee that you want us to start planning for? We'll probably start having budget discussions a little earlier this year than we have in years past, just to because it may take us longer to gather information. This is going to be a trickier year, I think. A lot of what we're going to probably see is more in the line of requesting for salaries. I know you all have probably gotten a lot of questions from staff about increases. So we're gonna stick in that vein. If you all agree with moving forward with that, which I'm sure most of you are with the feedback you've gotten recently. So if there's anything I need to adjust from last year or anything like that, I just wanted to at least have a brief discussion about that before I start building the timelines. So do you all have anything you want us to change or anything we need to do differently? Or
I think we probably need to take it offline and get back to you with regards to like the joint meetings and things like that. Kathy, I don't know, have we been able to reach out and get any feedback like from the county commissioners on whether that should be something in the process, whether we even can meet face to face or do it via Zoom?
I think it would be important to have a joint meeting with the county, just to have it. We have the committee now for the bond stuff that's been going on with SBC in county. So I'm hoping that gets moving and that it should be finished up in January or February. And I definitely think we can have a conversation with the county and have a joint.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and leave that. Leave at least 2 joint meetings on the calendar. I'd like to bring you all the calendar at next month's finance committee for approval. Just, most of the time it's in draft form, and we kind of, it's pretty fluid throughout this process, so we can make adjustments if we need to. So I'll put something together for us for the next finance committee meeting, so we can go ahead and start moving forward.
We always have great ideas of getting this done, starting early and getting it done faster, but it never works out like that. There's always on everything. We try for sure, but yeah, that we definitely need to have the 2 meetings with the county. We didn't get to have the second one last year, and I think that was because of COVID just hitting and things. But it was important to have the meeting.
Well, I may try to shift some of those discussions maybe back a little bit, just to have them earlier on in our process. So like I say, I'll have you all a draft at the next finance committee meeting. That way we can start looking at it.
I do think we should have one in February like we normally do with them, though, because is the bond committee will be done hopefully by then, so we can put that to rest, or to have more discussion about it just between our board and the county commissioners. And the second part is talking about what they're seeing in sales tax, in how property taxes were paid this year. Did it go down? Did the percentage go down? So I think it would be helpful to even have one in February. Well,
and I do agree. We're going to need to have some of that information earlier for planning purposes. So that's why I really want to make sure that we start, so we can really start making sure we do what we need to. So.
Aren't they going to? Isn't the county going on starting the reval process for next? Is that for next fiscal year? Yes,
they've started the process. They've been talking about it. There was an article in the paper about it as well. But it's for next season. Next.
Shauna, I would also like to see. I think it would be helpful to. I would suggest a bar chart. I know in the past we have shown historical and current requests for direct costs. And since the county chooses to break down what they call indirect cost, mainly the cost of past UCPS bonds, I think it would be very helpful to show a chart over the last, say, 5-6 years of total cost, both direct and indirect, to the county. Because last year they showed an indirect cost decreasing by 25 million. But when we brought that to their attention in both the budget and the bond presentations, they act like they were totally clueless on that issue. So my point is, I think a chart will show of both direct and indirect costs. What total cost to the county for running UCPS will show that over in recent history, that total cost to the county has gone down significantly. And so my question is, where did the money go? Okay.
Well, I may be able to pull some of that information, but that's going to be a little more difficult for me to get because I don't have access to their financial information.
Well, ask them.
See what I can pull together, and from some of their presentations and past budget submissions that are online, and see what we can put together.
And we can ask
in their last, ask them in the last budget presentation. They went back 3 years, I think. So I know the bond debt has gone steadily downward, and it went off the table last year, but nobody wanted to look at that. They made the comments looking at our direct cost request of operating and capital that would incur a tax increase, when that was totally false. When the total costs of, if you look at it, went down 25 million, and then they bragged that they gave us another 3 million. Well, okay. So in total cost to the county went down some 22 million. And I don't know about y'all, but I didn't see a decrease in my tax bill. And now with their process of putting, bundling SPCC's cost for this total education on the tax bill, people have no way of knowing that the fact that total funding for UCPS has been on a downward trend for some years now. And that's basically because of debt reduction. And so when we come in and ask for increased operating funding to pay for these salaries, and everybody starts yelling and screaming that we're asking for a tax increase, well, no, we're not. If you look at the trend over the past couple of years, total cost to run UCPS, including outstanding debt, has declined to more than offset any request for increased funding for our teachers and staff. And I think a chart that would show what they are calling indirect and what they refer to as direct operating and capital over a period of time would be very eye-opening to everyone.
Okay, I'll definitely look, I'll see what I can put together for discussion.
Thank you. Any other questions? So the next meeting of our regular meetings is November 24th at 9 a.m. We're going to keep doing Zoom unless you guys have a problem with that. I have to get a kid to school in the morning, so it would help me immensely, and I don't know if it helps you guys from a working perspective as well. But if you have any issues with the Zoom meetings, let me know. The other issue is on November 5th is our board meeting. We're going to have a short finance committee after SPTT. Tomorrow talks about Parkwood and the mascot, and whatever it ends up, we need to have a finance committee discussion about where the money is going to come from. And Shauna and Mr. Strickland have been working on that. So we will be ready for that on the 5th. But I just want to let you know, would 5:30 be okay with you guys? If we have facilities at 5, I think. So, okay.
Yep,
So let's do 5:30 on the 5th before the meeting. And we'll get you information before that. Anyone have anything else? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank y'all. Have a